This is everything I ate in a day to lose 16 kilos in 8 weeks. Now, this is not me telling you to go and eat these things, but you're a fully grown adult, you are capable of making your own decisions and choices. This is just what I ate every single day over 8 weeks to lose 16 kilos. Now, you might listen to some of these meals or certain foods and think it sounds very gym bro-ish or meathead-ish, that's a word, and it might sound boring as fuck, but when it comes down to food, and especially fat loss, simplicity is key, consistency is obviously key as well, and eating the same foods doesn't necessarily mean you need to be eating the same exact meals every day, and how you cook and prepare certain foods, i.e. the way you actually cook it, the seasoning that you use, what vegetables you pair with it, the carbohydrates you maybe put with the protein source, etc, 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 can really make or break your meal and actually make the same food items turn into a completely different meal. Now, the exact framework or structure that I incorporated with my diet over those 8 weeks was purely down to removing decision fatigue. And that is the killer of progress and results when it comes to fat loss. For the majority of people, if you are having to prepare different foods on a day-to-day basis and actually have to think about making different meals and tracking them and accounting for them, you will burn out mentally very, very quickly, and either things will start falling through the cracks, you'll forget to track certain things, or there will be inaccuracies with tracking those foods. So it sounds very boring and you might not like the sound of it, but the more you can eat the same thing every single day, or the more consistent you are with eating the same foods, the easier you will find the whole process. And decision fatigue is a very, very real thing. So if you can stick to the same foods on a day-to-day basis, you're onto a winner, or at least stick to the same foods for the majority of your diet. Now, the very first meal that I started my day with was always going to be very high protein and high fats as well, okay? You've just woken up, it's first thing in the day, you've spent the past, 7 to 9 hours without, probably a little bit longer actually, without any kind of food going into your body. The first thing that you want to be doing is replenishing your protein and fat as well, mostly because of muscle protein synthesis and hormonal regulation more than anything else. If you have the calories, you can add a little bit of carbohydrates in there, but for me personally, it's always going to be very high protein and high fats. So two choices here. You can either have like a Greek yogurt bowl, where it's just a lot of 0% fat Greek yogurt with maybe a little bit of granola, definitely some fruit, a little bit of honey, and if you want to give that Greek yogurt a little bit of flavor, even just like 10 grams of whey protein to give it a little bit more sweetness or flavor to it, but also bump up that protein ever so much as well. If you have the calories there, you can chuck in the granola. If not, remove that and focus on just the Greek yogurt, a little bit of whey protein for flavor, definitely some fruit and a little bit of honey. Second option that you could go for is some kind of eggs, egg whites, and again, if you have the calories, chuck in some like sourdough bread or a bagel or something like that. Again, when it comes to eggs, like we want that first meal we don't want any fucking about. We want it to be made as quickly as possible. We want it to be able to get into our body as quickly as possible. Eggs can obviously, if you've got the time to prepare it takes a little bit longer. Greek yogurt bowl, takes like 30 seconds to make up. You can make it the night before. I do think it's very important as well to get in some form of fiber first thing in the morning as well, purely for digestion more than anything else. So getting in the fruit if you're having the Greek yogurt bowl, or adding in the veg if you're having the omelette or the eggs or whatever, and make that a priority as well at the same time. Second meal of the day, so lunch as it's otherwise known, you're gonna hear this and it's gonna sound very bodybuilder, gym bro, meathead-ish, and it might sound boring as fuck, but it's just good old chicken breast, rice, veg, and I always chucked in a bit of pineapple there as well. It sounds boring as fuck, it sounds very bodybuilder-ish, meathead-ish, the way that you can make chicken and rice. If we think about your favorite cuisines, right? It might be Chinese, Thai, Italian, Mediterranean. Like these kind of cuisines are typically just made up of, well, not just the cuisines, but a lot of the most popular dishes within these cuisines are made up of chicken and some kind of carb source. Chicken and rice gets a bad rep for being boring as fuck. I always make the point that I think it's just down to the person being boring as fuck and how they're actually preparing it. You can turn chicken and rice into different things. It doesn't have to just be bland chicken breast and bland rice. The most important factor here is the chicken breast. Very high protein, very low fat. So you're getting a lot of protein for not a lot of calories. The rice you can swap out for other carbohydrate sources. You can use pasta, you can use noodles if you wanted to. Use a wrap if you really wanted to as well, if you're maybe tight for time and just want to quickly get something down. And I had a lot of pineapple in my diet as well. Number one, because I enjoy pineapple, but also the pineapple has a digestive enzyme in it, which funnily enough helps with digestion. So I had a lot of that in my diet just because it kept things moving, and it helped with bloating and reducing that. Meal number 3 was always a little bit on the heavier side. 5% beef mince, white potato, and then a shit heap of vegetables alongside that. One thing that I tend to do was that I would turn the beef mince into burger patties, and I just pan fry them and air fry the potatoes. And I just put pickles and then other vegetables on top of the burger patties. And again, I would have pineapple inside there. So again, it's a high protein source with minimal amounts of fat. It would have a heap of carbs from the white potato, and I'm getting plenty of fiber with the white potato, with the vegetables as well. One thing to note is, like, throughout this diet is obviously the measurements of the carbohydrate sources would come down over those 8 weeks, but also on a training day, that would be a higher amount of carbs than a rest day. So for example, like that first meal, if I was having the granola with the Greek yogurt bowl or the sourdough bread with the eggs, on a rest day, I would take that out. On a rest day with my lunch, with the chicken and the rice or whatever, I would most likely just reduce that amount. And then the white potato in that third meal, again, I would just reduce that amount as well. I quite enjoyed having 0 carbs in my first meal on a rest day. It just gave me, like, ironically, even though carbohydrate sources, like our brain's preferred energy, the source of energy, and it gives us energy, blah, blah, blah. I just felt more efficient and less lethargic in the day if that first meal was no carbs. But I would always put some carbs in if it was on a training day. But yeah, that third meal would just be the beef mince turned into burger patties. I absolutely loved that. There's no magic to it. And then air fry some white potatoes again. There's not really much you can do with potatoes, but you can chuck it in the oven. You can boil it. You can add seasoning to it, and it's basically like, they're not quite chips, but like when you're dieting and you're going quite aggressive with your calorie deficit, it's pretty much the same thing. And then my last meal of the day was always just high protein, high fats, no carbs during those 8 weeks, whether it was a training day or a rest day. And that was just salmon and veg, simple as. Again, high protein, high fats, which is really good before you go to bed. I'm a strong believer in high protein, high fats before you go to bed and when you wake up from bed, just for hormonal regulation more than anything else. But yeah, I would just air fry the salmon. I would pan fry the veg. I would basically fill my plate up with vegetables because I quite liked going to bed with a semi-full stomach, where I would structure like these meals around. I trained at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, so I would have carbs in a pre-workout meal and carbs in a post-workout meal. If you're someone who is training later in the evening, just swap the order. So on a training day, if you're having carbohydrates, even if it's just 2 out of your 4 meals or however many meals you're having, just try and aim to have your carbohydrates in your pre-workout meal and your post-workout meal, and then shift the no-carb meals outside of that. I did also have a protein shake and a Rice Krispie square bar post-workout, about like a half hour after I trained. Not for any particular reason, like the anabolic window's a load of shite, that is a myth. It was purely just to replenish my glycogen stores in a decently timed fashion, without me having to like wait for my next meal or anything like that, and it just allowed me to spread my meals a little bit more throughout the day. I never really classed that as a full meal. I guess you probably could in terms of calories, so that would take me up to 5. But those are just staple meals that I would eat every single day throughout those 8 weeks. And again, if we're trying to avoid decision fatigue, my best bit of advice is keep the protein sources exactly the same. Okay, I know that can sound boring and a little bit tedious, but if you swap out the vegetables you're using, if you swap out the carbohydrate sources you're using, even if you change up the way that you're cooking the food, that can take care of that. That can take care of that whole boredom setting in from your food. It can really make a meal seem completely different. Most people fail when it comes to fat loss because of inconsistencies with their diet. And what creates inconsistencies with their diet is decision fatigue, and either becoming too stressed and overwhelmed from having to make different choices that they just fuck things off, or they become inaccurate with their tracking, or it's just a point where it's like they find the whole process of tracking their food so monotonous and tedious because they're having to track different things and it's overwhelming them. What I will say as well is if you're eating the same thing every single day, yes, theoretically you should still be tracking it and accounting for it, but if you track a day's worth of food and you know your calories and your macros are being hit and you're eating that same thing 7 days throughout the week, you don't have to track it again. You just need to make the food and then eat it. It's taken care of, okay? Also, by the way, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, bits of advice and help when it comes to successful fat loss, be sure to sign up to my email list, which is in the description below. I'm sending out 3 emails a week, giving you free advice and sending out free guides as well. So make sure that you sign up for that. But yeah, folks, that is basically the exact framework and setup I used with my diet and nutrition over those 8 weeks to lose 16 kilos and get in pretty decent shape in just 2 months. In terms of like the calories and the macros, I won't bore you with it as such because it doesn't fucking matter. You're gonna need different calories and macros than what I need. Those are just the foods that I ate, and for other reasons than just like hitting my protein and making sure I was in a calorie deficit, there's obviously a lot of micronutrition in all the food that I was eating as well. But in terms of getting enjoyment out of your food and also getting a lot of bang for buck out of your calories and your nutrition, stick to single ingredient foods, stick to whole nutrient dense, nutritious foods, and try to limit the things that are like your protein bars, your protein puddings, or protein pancakes and shite like that. As much as they might be a little bit more enjoyable, you're not getting a lot of bang for buck in terms of nutrition back for it. And the more nutrition you can get in your diet during a fat loss phase, especially, the more successful that fat loss phase is going to be, the more satiated you're going to be, the better you can perform in the gym, outside of the gym as well. But thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two there. Make sure to like and subscribe, and please leave a comment below to let me know what your favorite foods have been during your fat loss phases. Catch you in the next one.